Close your eyes for a moment, and imagine the sound of the sea. The waves move slowly, rising and falling in endless rhythm, a rhythm older than the cities of man, older than the languages carved into stone. Somewhere along the eastern edge of the Mediterranean, long ago, the coastline shimmered under the sun. Mountains stood behind it, green and rocky, while the waters stretched out in front, reflecting endless light. Here, in this narrow strip of land between mountains and sea, a people arose who would leave an echo across centuries: the Phoenicians. Tonight, as you listen, let your mind drift back thousands of years, to a time when ships were carved from cedar trees, when sails caught the wind and carried merchants beyond the horizon, when small coastal towns gave birth to an empire not of land, but of sea. The Phoenicians did not build massive armies. They did not conquer vast lands with iron and blood. Instead, they mastered something gentler, yet more enduring: the currents, the winds, and the art of trade. The Phoenician homeland was small, almost fragile. It stretched along the Levantine coast, in what today would be Lebanon, parts of Syria, and northern Israel. The mountains behind them were steep and wooded, and the narrow plain by the sea left little room for agriculture. Unlike Egypt, with its wide fertile valley, or Mesopotamia, with its rivers nourishing fields, Phoenicia was pressed tight between stone and sea. To survive, its people looked outward, not inward. The sea became their field, their harvest, their endless road. They built cities along the shore: Byblos, Tyre, Sidon, Arwood. Each city was independent, a small kingdom with its own rulers, priests, and temples. Yet together, they shared a culture, a language, and above all, a way of life centered on ships. Byblos, one of the oldest cities, thrived on the trade of papyrus, so much so that its very name became tied to the Greek word for book. Sidon became famous for its purple dye, a color so rare and so precious that only kings could wear it. Tyre, strong and proud, would one day challenge even the great empires of the world. But in these early centuries, the Phoenicians were simply sailors, venturing a little farther each year. Their ships, long and narrow, cut across the water. At first, they hugged the coastlines, sailing from one port to another, never losing sight of land. Slowly, as confidence grew, they dared to cross open waters. They found islands, harbors, and routes that few had known before. The sea, for the Phoenicians, was not just a barrier, it was freedom. It carried them away from the crowded mountains, away from the hunger of poor soil. It carried them toward opportunity. Every port they reached was a chance for exchange: grain for timber, gold for glass, spices for textiles. They became the middlemen of the ancient world, connecting east and west. If you imagine standing on the shore of Sidon at dusk, thousands of years ago, you would see torches burning on the docks. Sailors loading jars of wine, oil, and glass beads into ships. Merchants speaking in many tongues: Egyptian, Babylonian, Canaanite, bargaining in the night air. The cedar trees of the mountains, cut into planks, were shaped into ships stronger than any others. Even the great kings of Egypt sought Phoenician wood for their temples and boats. The Phoenicians believed that the gods watched over the waves. They built temples to Melkart, the god of Tyre, and to Astarte, goddess of fertility and the stars. When their ships set sail, they prayed for safe passage, for favorable winds, for the guidance of constellations. At night, sailors lay on deck and watched the heavens. They were among the first to use the North Star for navigation, finding their way in the darkness by the eternal light above. In this way, their world expanded. Slowly, steadily, they traced new coastlines. Cyprus, with its copper, the Aegean Islands, the shores of North Africa, the distant lands beyond the Pillars of Hercules, where the Atlantic opened like a mystery. Everywhere they went, they left small traces, not armies, not fortresses, but trading posts, warehouses, colonies. Like seeds scattered by the wind, these outposts grew into connections, networks of exchange that bound the Mediterranean together. Their greatest gift, perhaps, was not material, but intellectual. To keep records of trade, they needed a simple system of writing. The cumbersome scripts of Mesopotamia or Egypt, with hundreds of signs, were too heavy for merchants always on the move. The Phoenicians created something new. An alphabet. Just a few dozen symbols, each standing for a sound. Easy to learn, easy to use, easy to carry. From Phoenician letters, the Greeks took inspiration. From Greek came Latin. From Latin, nearly all the alphabets of Europe and beyond. Even as their cities fell, their letters lived on. But for now, in these early days, the Phoenicians were still rising. Their ships grew stronger, their cities richer, their influence wider. And though they were small, caught between empires, they learned how to survive. When the Egyptians demanded tribute, they gave it. When the Assyrians marched to their gates, they opened them, paid what was asked, and waited. Always, the Phoenicians preferred to bend rather than break. Their true empire was not of stone walls or soldiers, but of ships that could slip away, vanish into the horizon, and return with wealth. As you let these images drift through your mind, you may feel the slow rocking of the sea, as if you yourself were aboard one of their ships. The wood creaks gently. The sail flutters in the night breeze. The stars glimmer overhead. Somewhere far behind lies the coastline of Phoenicia, with its narrow strip of land and its bright cities by the shore. Somewhere ahead lies the unknown, new lands, new markets, new stories waiting to be told. The Phoenicians trusted the sea. They called it home, their endless road, their partner in survival. And though many centuries would pass, though empires would rise and fall, their legacy would remain carried on the waves, like a whisper that never fades. So let the rhythm of the sea carry you too, softly, into sleep. The Phoenicians are there, their ships sailing quietly through the dark, lanterns glowing, prayers rising to the stars. They move calmly, eternally, across the waters of time. Imagine again the coastline of Phoenicia. The mountains rise like a dark wall behind, while the sea stretches endlessly in front. Along this narrow strip of land, the Phoenicians built their cities, jewels of stone and light, each one small in size, but vast in influence. Tonight, let us drift among them, slowly, one by one, as though our ship is gliding from harbor to harbor beneath a starlit sky. We begin with Byblos, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. Byblos was already ancient when the Greeks gave it its name. The people of Egypt knew it long before, for it was here they came to seek the precious cedar wood of Lebanon. Picture the harbor of Byblos, thousands of years ago. The air carries the scent of resin and salt. Great logs of cedar are stacked along the shore, their trunks wide and straight, their color deep and golden. Egyptian ships arrive, their sails heavy with desert winds, and their crews step onto the dock, carrying ornaments of gold, linen, and papyrus scrolls. In return, they load their ships with cedar beams that will become temple roofs, palace doors, and the sacred boats of pharaohs. Byblos was a gateway, a place where mountain forests met the needs of distant kingdoms. But Byblos was not only about timber. It became a city of writing, of trade in papyrus, so important that even the word Bible carries the echo of its name. In its temples, priests performed ancient rituals to honor Balat-Jebel, the Lady of Byblos, protector of the city. And at night, the citizens lit lamps that flickered across the harbor, guiding ships home like stars upon the water. From Byblos, we sail southward, and soon we see the bright lights of Sidon. Sidon was a city of craftsmen, renowned across the Mediterranean for its skill in making glass. Imagine the workshops glowing with orange heat, as artisans blow molten glass into delicate shapes. Vases, beads, ornaments that shimmer in the light. Sidon was also a center of the mysterious purple dye, extracted drop by drop from tiny sea snails. It took thousands of shells to create a single garment's worth of dye, making it so rare that kings and emperors wore it as a mark of divinity. To wear the purple of Sidon was to proclaim authority, wealth, and power. In Sidon's markets, sailors and traders gathered from every corner of the sea. One could hear a chorus of languages: Egyptian, Aramaic, Akkadian, Greek. Spices perfumed the air: cinnamon, frankincense, myrrh. Merchants bargained patiently, their voices soft under the hum of the crowd. And when evening came, the harbor shimmered with the reflection of lamps, while music and song drifted from taverns by the water. Sidon lived with the pulse of trade, its heart beating in rhythm with the tides. Sailing farther still, we come to Tyre, perhaps the most famous of all Phoenician cities. Tyre stood proud, partly on the coast, partly on an island offshore, strong and nearly impregnable. Its walls rose from the sea itself, tall and defiant, as though daring any empire to challenge them. Tyre was the heart of Phoenician strength, a city that would one day resist mighty armies, including those of Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon and even Alexander the Great. For centuries, it thrived as a hub of trade, innovation, and culture. Tyre, like Sidon, was a center of purple dye, but it was also known for shipbuilding. Its docks rang with the sound of hammers, saws, and the creak of ropes. Here, cedar wood was shaped into vessels that carried Phoenician merchants to every corner of the Mediterranean. Tyre became the mother city of colonies far away: Carthage in North Africa, Gades in Spain, and many others. It was from Tyre that the Phoenician spirit of exploration truly radiated, sending its people across the sea like rays of sunlight breaking across the water. Life in Tyre was vibrant. The island city bustled with marketplaces where gold, silver, ivory, and exotic animals changed hands. Temples rose in honor of Melkart, the city's patron god, whom the Greeks would later compare to Heracles. Festivals filled the streets with music, dancers, and offerings, while ships arrived and departed, their sails billowing like clouds against the horizon. Tyre was alive, always in motion, always connected to lands near and far. And then, to the north, lies Arwood, a smaller island city, perched upon rock and surrounded by the sea. Though less famous than Byblos, Sidon, or Tyre, Arwood was important in its own right. It was a fortress of stone, a citadel rising directly from the waves. Its people were fierce sailors and warriors, providing fleets of ships to greater powers when called upon. In Arwood's narrow streets, One could hear the constant crash of waves against walls, as if the sea itself was always whispering at the city's gates. Together, these cities formed the heart of Phoenicia. Each one was independent, ruled by its own kings and councils, yet they were bound by culture, language, and the sea. They did not unite under a single crown, for they did not need to. Their strength lay not in conquest, but in connection, a web of trade and influence that reached across continents. If you were to walk through these cities at dusk, you would feel their rhythm. In Byblos, the heavy scent of cedar and the solemn prayers of priests. In Sidon, the glow of furnaces and the murmur of merchants bargaining in many tongues. In Tyre, the clang of shipbuilders and the laughter of sailors readying for voyages to distant lands. In Arwood, the constant thunder of waves and the stern gaze of warriors. Each city had its own soul, but together they beat with the same pulse, the pulse of the sea. The people of these cities lived simple lives, yet their world was vast. Fishermen cast nets from rocky shores. Farmers tended vineyards and olive groves in the narrow strips of soil. Artisans crafted glass, metal, and cloth. Children played by the harbors, watching ships depart with wide eyes, dreaming of journeys they would one day take. And always, in the background, the sea moved steadily, endlessly, like a great breathing presence. As you let these images drift in your mind, imagine yourself aboard a ship, sailing slowly along the Phoenician coast. The cities appear one by one in the fading light. Byblos, Sidon, Tyre, Arwood. Each glimmers with torches, lanterns, and voices carried on the wind. Each is a star along the shore, guiding you onward, reminding you that though the land is narrow, the world beyond is endless. The Phoenicians did not need vast armies or sprawling empires. Their cities, modest in size, created something far greater than monuments of stone. They created connections. They carried ideas, goods, and knowledge farther than almost anyone before them. Their legacy was not measured in conquest, but in exchange. And in this quiet, enduring way, their cities shaped the world. So rest now, and let the vision of these harbors soothe your thoughts. The glow of Byblos, the fire of Sidon's furnaces, the proud walls of Tyre, the steadfast rock of Arwood. They remain in memory, eternal cities by the eternal sea. Their voices are gentle, their lights soft, their legacy deep as the waves. And as you drift into sleep, the ships of Phoenicia continue their journey, forever sailing, forever connecting, forever alive upon the waters of time. Imagine yourself standing on the quiet shore of Tyre or Sidon, the water stretching endlessly before you. The air is tinged with salt and cedar, and the soft cries of gulls drift over the waves. You see a ship moored gently in the harbor. Its hull is long and slender, carved with care from the cedar of Lebanon, wood that is strong, fragrant, and perfectly suited to endure the trials of the open sea. This is a Phoenician ship, a vessel that will carry its crew across the vastness of the Mediterranean and even beyond, to lands few have ever imagined. The Phoenicians were masters of the sea. Unlike armies that conquer by force, their power was carried on timber and sail. Their ships were not only strong but elegant, designed for speed and endurance. Long and narrow, with a high prow that cut through waves like a knife, they could glide across the water with surprising grace. Some were merchant vessels, sturdy and spacious, capable of carrying goods for distant kings. Others were warships, fast and nimble, with a single row of oarsmen ready to strike if necessary. Each ship was a marvel of human ingenuity, built with an understanding of the sea that had been passed down through generations. Tonight, as you drift through this story, picture a merchant ship preparing to leave port. Sailors move with quiet efficiency, securing ropes, inspecting planks, and whispering prayers to the gods. They are heading for Cyprus, or perhaps Crete, or even the distant coast of Egypt. The wind picks up gently, brushing against the sail. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the ship begins to move, leaving the comfort of the harbor and venturing into open waters. The Phoenicians trusted in the rhythm of the sea. They learned to read the winds and the currents, to sense subtle shifts in the weather, to watch the flight of birds for signs of nearby land. They watched the clouds, the waves, and the sun's path across the sky. Most importantly, they studied the stars. Long before modern compasses, they looked to the heavens for guidance. The North Star, fixed and eternal, became a guiding light in the darkness, allowing sailors to know their direction even in the vast, featureless expanse of the ocean. Their voyages were not without risk. Storms could rise with terrifying suddenness, tossing ships like toys upon the waves. Sailors prayed to Melkart and Astarte, seeking protection and safe passage. They relied on skill, courage, and experience, for the sea could be merciless. Yet the rewards were immense. Every successful voyage brought wealth, knowledge, and connections that expanded the influence of Phoenician cities far beyond their modest shores. Consider the journey to distant lands. To reach Cyprus, the sailors followed coastlines, stopping at friendly ports along the way. Trade goods changed hands: cedar for copper, glass beads for gold, wine for pottery. Beyond Cyprus lay Crete and the Aegean Islands, where new cultures and ideas mingled with the Phoenician presence. Some ventured as far as Iberia, North Africa, and even the western Mediterranean. These early explorations laid the foundation for colonies and trading posts that would endure for centuries. The ships themselves were works of art and science. Hulls were crafted to withstand the pounding of waves and the pressure of storms. Sails were made from woven fibers, strong yet light, catching the wind efficiently. Ropes, pulleys, and anchors were carefully designed, reflecting generations of practical knowledge. Every detail mattered, for the life of the crew and the success of the voyage depended on it. Sailors worked in unison, their oars moving rhythmically, synchronized like the heartbeat of the sea itself. They sang songs to keep time, chants that echoed softly across the water. At night, when the stars shone overhead, they navigated by constellations. Orion, the Pleiades, and the North Star guided them as faithfully as any map. In the quiet hours, they marveled at the vastness around them, feeling both small and part of something infinite. The Phoenicians were also the first to venture into the unknown deliberately. They mapped coastlines with care, noting harbors, reefs, and currents. They shared knowledge between cities and generations, ensuring that each new voyage was safer and more efficient than the last. Their spirit of exploration was not reckless, but deliberate, measured, and respectful of the sea's power. Imagine now a voyage at dawn. The sky is painted in soft hues of orange and pink. The water is calm, reflecting the first light. A ship sails steadily, carrying jars of wine, bundles of papyrus, and delicate glass ornaments. The crew moves quietly, adjusting the sails, listening to the gentle splash of water against the hull. Somewhere ahead lies an unfamiliar coast, a new port, a new chance to trade, to learn, and to connect. This was the essence of Phoenician life. Not conquest, not domination, but movement, connection, and discovery. Every journey strengthened their cities, expanded their influence, and spread their culture. Through their mastery of navigation, the Phoenicians became a bridge between civilizations, linking distant lands and peoples through the gentle but relentless motion of the sea. Even in the darkest nights, when waves rose and storms threatened, the sailors trusted their knowledge, their instruments, and each other. The rhythm of the ship, the creak of the wood, the whisper of the wind, all became part of a meditative harmony that carried them forward. And as you imagine yourself aboard one of these vessels, you can feel that same calm, the soothing rocking of the ship, the gentle murmur of the ocean, and the guiding light of the stars above. Through centuries, their ships ventured farther than most could dream. They were the first to carry the Phoenician alphabet across the sea, along with their goods and ideas. They laid the foundations for trade networks that would last long after their cities faded. And through it all, the sea remained a constant companion, a partner, a teacher. So now, as you listen, picture the Phoenician ships gliding silently through the waters under a starlit sky. Hear the gentle lapping of waves against the hull, the distant call of seabirds, and the faint rustle of sails in the wind. Let the rhythm of the oars, the whisper of the sea, and the constancy of the stars guide your mind into relaxation. The Phoenicians continue their eternal voyage across time and memory, and you, too, can drift along with them, gently, peacefully, and endlessly. Imagine once more the coastline of Phoenicia, bathed in soft morning light. The harbors of Byblos, Sidon, and Tyre are alive with gentle activity. Sailors and merchants move quietly along the docks, carrying jars of olive oil, bundles of papyrus, and glimmering glass beads. The air is filled with the soft clinking of goods and the distant cries of seabirds. Here, in these narrow coastal cities, an extraordinary web of trade stretches out across the Mediterranean, connecting lands, peoples, and ideas in a delicate harmony of movement. The Phoenicians understood that their small stretch of land could not sustain vast populations. The mountains behind their cities were steep and rocky, and fertile soil was scarce. Yet, where nature limited agriculture, the sea offered endless opportunity. Their economy became a mirror of the waves, fluid, ever-moving, connecting distant shores with a rhythm as steady as the tides. By transporting goods from one civilization to another, they created prosperity not by conquest, but by connection. Consider the goods that passed through Phoenician ports. The purple dye of Tyre, made from thousands of tiny sea snails, was so rare and precious that kings and emperors adorned themselves with its vibrant hue. Glassware, produced in Sidon's fiery workshops, carried delicate artistry across the seas. Papyrus from Byblos, cedar from the mountains, wine, olive oil, and fine textiles moved from one harbor to the next, exchanged for gold, silver, spices, and exotic animals. The Phoenicians became the intermediaries of the ancient world, moving treasures across hundreds of miles of water with care and precision. As your mind drifts among these images, picture a Phoenician ship arriving in a foreign port. The sails are lowered, ropes secured, and the crew carefully unloads the cargo. Local merchants approach, eager to examine the precious goods. There is a quiet exchange of language and gestures, a negotiation conducted with patience and subtlety. And when the trade is complete, the ship returns to its home harbor, bringing wealth, stories, and knowledge of distant lands. Trade was not merely a matter of goods. It was also the exchange of ideas. The Phoenicians carried knowledge of metallurgy, shipbuilding, and writing to distant shores. Their alphabet, simple and adaptable, allowed correspondence and record-keeping to flourish across regions. They introduced glass-making techniques, textiles, and artistic styles to cultures far beyond their own. In this way, they became silent architects of a connected Mediterranean, linking civilizations through commerce, culture, and communication. The Phoenicians were careful and deliberate traders. They established trading posts along coastlines, places where ships could rest, exchange goods, and replenish supplies. Some of these outposts grew into cities themselves: Carthage in North Africa, Gades in Spain, and numerous smaller colonies across islands and coasts. Each post reflected the skill and adaptability of the Phoenicians, blending local traditions with their own culture while maintaining connections to the mother cities. Imagine walking through one of these trading posts at dawn. The light filters softly through the narrow streets. Merchants unpack wares from distant lands: copper from Cyprus, tin from the west, ivory from Africa, and rare spices from the east. Sailors tell stories of journeys, of storms survived and new lands discovered. The air smells of salt, resin, and the faint sweetness of exotic goods. Every corner hums with potential, a quiet, steady rhythm of exchange that sustains life and culture alike. Phoenician trade also shaped diplomacy. They often acted as intermediaries between empires. When Egypt needed materials from distant lands, Phoenician ships delivered them. When the Assyrians or Babylonians sought alliances or tribute, the Phoenicians provided information, goods, and access. They learned that survival often meant skillful negotiation, patience, and the subtle use of influence rather than force. Their power was soft, but enduring, built on trust, reliability, and the quiet authority of knowledge. The network of Phoenician trade stretched across the Mediterranean like a vast, invisible web. From the Levant to the shores of North Africa, from the Aegean Islands to the distant coasts of Spain, goods, ideas, and people moved in constant motion. Each voyage reinforced the next, each city and trading post connected to another in a seamless living system. This web allowed cultures to learn from each other, to flourish together, and to create a shared history of commerce and discovery. Their economy also reflected a deep understanding of sustainability. The Phoenicians knew the limits of their homeland, the fragility of their resources. They harvested cedar with care, leaving forests to regenerate. They navigated dangerous seas with caution. Their long-term view ensured that trade could continue for generations, and that their influence would endure even when empires around them rose and fell. As night falls over the Phoenician harbors, the docks quiet. Torches flicker, casting warm light on the wooden planks. Sailors rest, merchants tally their gains, and the gentle lapping of waves against the hulls of ships provides a soothing rhythm. In the silence, you can imagine the endless movement of goods, the constant flow of knowledge, and the quiet resilience of a people who understood the true value of connection. The legacy of Phoenician trade endures not only in the stories of their ships and cities, but also in the cultures they touched. They taught the world that commerce could be more than profit, that it could be a bridge between civilizations, a thread that binds distant lands, and a gentle force shaping history in subtle, profound ways. So as you imagine the flickering lanterns along the harbors of Byblos, Sidon, Tyre, and Arwood, allow yourself to drift on the waves of their trade. Hear the soft sounds of cargo being moved, the whispers of agreements, the gentle creak of ships at anchor. Let the rhythm of commerce, calm and deliberate, carry your mind into rest, while the Phoenicians sail on eternally, across the endless waters of memory and time. Imagine walking slowly through the narrow streets of a Phoenician city at dusk. The sun has begun to sink behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the stone buildings. Lanterns flicker softly along the docks and marketplaces, and the air carries the scent of cedar, olive oil, and incense. This is a world alive with ritual, creativity, and quiet devotion, the culture of the Phoenicians, rich, subtle, and enduring. At the heart of every city stood its temples, dedicated to gods who watched over the people, the sea, and the land. In Tyre, Melkart, the god of the city, stood as a protector of sailors and merchants. His temples rose high, adorned with carvings of lions and waves, symbols of strength and movement. In Sidon, Astarte, the goddess of fertility and the stars, was honored with offerings and festivals. In Byblos, Balat Jebel, the lady of the city, guided the lives of citizens with her gentle but ever-present influence. Religious practice was woven into daily life. Sailors offered prayers before voyages. Merchants made small offerings for success in trade. Farmers left gifts for a good harvest, and craftsmen sought the favor of the gods before beginning their work. The Phoenicians believed that the divine was present in all things, in the rise and fall of tides, in the growth of cedar trees, in the shimmering colors of the Mediterranean sunset. This quiet reverence shaped their understanding of the world and guided their choices, always emphasizing respect, patience, and balance. Art was equally integral to Phoenician culture. In workshops along the harbors, artisans shaped glass into delicate beads, vases, and ornaments that gleamed in the sun. Metalworkers cast bronze and silver into tools, jewelry, and ceremonial objects. Carvings adorned temples and homes, depicting gods, animals, and scenes of daily life. The purple dye of Tyre became a hallmark of wealth and status, its deep, vibrant hue infused into clothing, banners, and ceremonial robes. Every object reflected both practical skill and aesthetic beauty, a testament to a people who understood that life could be functional and beautiful at the same time. Music and dance were central to Phoenician celebrations. Soft melodies of lyres and flutes drifted through temples during religious festivals. Dancers moved in flowing rhythms, hands lifted toward the sky or tracing patterns in the sand, honoring gods and the cycles of life. Even in moments of work, song helped synchronize labor, oarsmen moving in rhythm to the gentle chants of the sea, artisans shaping glass and clay to the cadence of melody. Music, like the sea, was a constant companion, guiding movement and sustaining spirit. The Phoenicians also celebrated the passage of time with seasonal festivals. They marked the cycles of planting and harvest, the phases of the moon, and the solstices with offerings, feasts, and ceremonies. These observances were not only spiritual but social, bringing communities together in shared experience, reinforcing connections between city, sea, and people. In these moments, the mundane and the sacred intertwined seamlessly, as if the world itself had a heartbeat that all could feel. Education and knowledge were prized. Merchants and scribes learned to read and write, not only to record transactions but also to preserve stories, laws, and myths. Their alphabet, simple yet profound, became a tool for communication and understanding across lands. Stories of gods, heroes, and ancestors were passed down, not only as entertainment but as guidance, teaching virtues, resilience, and respect for the world. Imagine entering a Phoenician home at night. Oil lamps burn gently on shelves, illuminating walls adorned with carvings and paintings. A family gathers, sharing a meal of bread, olives, and wine, while a child practices letters on a clay tablet. Outside, the sea murmurs softly, and somewhere in the city, a temple bell tolls, signaling a night prayer. Life moves at a gentle rhythm, blending work, devotion, and art into a continuous, harmonious flow. Their culture was shaped not only by the land they lived on but also by the people they met. Phoenician ports welcomed travelers, traders, and ideas from Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Aegean, and beyond. The exchange of thought, religion, and artistry enriched their cities, creating a dynamic cultural mosaic. Yet, despite these influences, the Phoenicians maintained a strong sense of identity, rooted in the sea, in their devotion, and in the subtle patterns of daily life that endured across generations. Art and religion also served as guidance for their voyages. Symbols and rituals protected sailors and merchants, instilling confidence and calm in the face of the vast, unpredictable Mediterranean. Carvings on temples, amulets, and offerings ensured the favor of gods. Music and dance reinforced unity, creating a sense of shared purpose and harmony among communities and crews alike. Even the smallest details of life reflected this intricate balance. Jewelry, pottery, and textiles were not merely decorative, they carried symbolic meaning, connecting individuals to the larger world. Temple carvings depicted not only gods but the surrounding environment, animals, trees, waves, reinforcing the Phoenicians' belief in the interconnection of life, land, and sea. Every pattern, every gesture, every object held significance, embedding mindfulness and reverence into daily existence. As you let these images drift through your mind, picture the quiet streets of a Phoenician city at twilight. The sky deepens into shades of violet and indigo. Lanterns flicker, casting soft, golden light across stone walls. The gentle hum of conversation mixes with the distant crashing of waves. Priests chant softly in temples, artisans shape their work by the fire, children play quietly under the stars. The rhythm of life flows gently, like the tide lapping at the shore. Through culture, art, and religion, the Phoenicians created a world that endured. Their devotion to beauty, knowledge, and harmony allowed their civilization to influence distant lands, leaving traces of thought, craft, and spirituality across the Mediterranean. They understood the importance of patience, of careful work, and of connection, both with the divine and with each other. So as you imagine the flickering lamps, the soft music, the gentle movement of craftsmen and families, allow yourself to drift along with them. Feel the calm, the reverence, and the quiet artistry that filled their days. Let your mind float among the temples, workshops, and streets of Phoenicia, and carry you gently toward rest. The cities, the people, and their culture remain, eternal and serene, like a soft echo upon the waves of time. Imagine drifting slowly across the sparkling Mediterranean, the gentle sway of a Phoenician ship beneath you. The horizon stretches endlessly, a seamless meeting of sky and water. As you move through this calm, think of the Phoenicians not just as people of the coast, but as explorers, builders, and connectors of the ancient world. Their cities on the Levantine shore were only the beginning. Beyond them, new horizons awaited, and with each voyage, a network of colonies began to emerge, extending their influence far across the sea. The earliest colonies were often modest settlements, small outposts where ships could rest, trade goods, and replenish supplies. But these places grew, nurtured by the resources, skills, and knowledge of Phoenician settlers. They became hubs of commerce, learning, and culture. Each new colony reflected the character of its founders, a careful balance of adaptability and preservation, blending local customs with Phoenician ways of life. One of the most famous of these colonies was Carthage, founded on the coast of modern-day Tunisia. Carthage began as a small settlement, but over centuries, it grew into a thriving city, a center of trade and maritime power that rivaled the greatest cities of the Mediterranean. Imagine the harbor of Carthage, filled with ships from Tyre and Sidon, vessels laden with olive oil, wine, timber, and luxury goods. Merchants and sailors move gracefully among the docks, their voices a gentle chorus blending languages, stories, and agreements. Temples rise above the city, and the soft glow of torches reflects on the water, creating an image both peaceful and powerful. Beyond Carthage, the Phoenicians established colonies along the coast of North Africa, the islands of the western Mediterranean, and even into the distant lands of Spain. Each settlement acted as a stepping stone, a safe haven for ships, and a place for exchange of goods, ideas, and technology. Imagine a small settlement on a rocky Spanish coast. Cedar timber is unloaded, jars of wine exchanged for silver or tin, glass beads traded for local pottery. Slowly, the settlement grows, its streets forming, houses built from local stone and imported wood. At night, lanterns flicker along the harbor, guiding returning ships to safety, just as the constellations guide sailors across open waters. These colonies were more than trading posts. They were cultural bridges, transmitting Phoenician language, religion, art, and technology to distant peoples. Temples were built, carrying the names of gods such as Melkart, Astarte, and Baal. Workshops shaped glass, metals, and textiles, often blending local styles with Phoenician techniques. And in the quiet moments between trade and work, stories, songs, and traditions traveled with the settlers, embedding themselves into the cultures of the colonies. Imagine traveling from Tyre to Carthage in the quiet of night. The water is calm, the moon's reflection shimmering on gentle waves. Sailors rest while a small group remains awake, steering by the stars. Along the way, they stop at small islands, gathering knowledge of safe harbors, currents, and winds. Each voyage is a lesson, a mapping of the Mediterranean, a quiet expansion of Phoenician influence without force, only presence and skill. Over time, these colonies became self-sufficient yet remained connected to the mother cities along the Levantine coast. Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos continue to provide guidance, trade connections, and cultural continuity. But the colonies also developed unique characteristics, shaped by their surroundings. Carthage, for example, became a maritime power in its own right, eventually commanding fleets, negotiating treaties, and establishing its own sphere of influence. Through these settlements, Phoenician culture, commerce, and navigation spread widely. Their alphabet traveled as far as the western Mediterranean, their art and craft inspired local artisans, and their trade networks wove an intricate web connecting Europe, Africa, and the Near East. Even islands such as Sardinia, Sicily, and Malta felt the subtle touch of Phoenician presence. Goods moved steadily, ideas circulated, and the gentle rhythm of their ships became a familiar, comforting pulse in the waters of the ancient world. Life in these colonies mirrored that of the homeland, with adaptations to local conditions. Streets were narrow, buildings compact, and harbors bustling. Temples stood at the heart of the settlements, where priests and citizens offered prayers for safe passage, good harvests, and the favor of the gods. Artisans worked patiently, crafting tools, jewelry, and vessels, while merchants engaged in the quiet, deliberate rhythm of trade. The sea remained central, guiding daily life, shaping routines, and inspiring dreams of distant lands. Even as centuries passed, and empires rose and fell around them, the network of Phoenician colonies endured. They served as vital points of contact, connecting peoples and regions that might otherwise have remained isolated. The colonies were both extensions of Phoenicia and unique centers of life, reflecting the adaptability, ingenuity, and enduring spirit of their founders. As you let this vision drift through your mind, picture the colonies glowing softly under the Mediterranean sky. Lanterns along the docks shimmer on calm waters. Sailors unload cargo quietly, merchants exchange goods with careful gestures, and the soft sounds of conversation and laughter rise and fall with the gentle waves. Each settlement is a quiet testament to exploration, connection, and the enduring presence of the Phoenicians. Through their colonies, the Phoenicians taught the world that influence does not require conquest, that power can be gentle, and that presence, knowledge, and connection are often stronger than armies. Their legacy, carried on waves, in letters, in art, and in the rhythm of trade, continues to echo across time, a serene and unbroken link between past and present. So as you drift along these coasts and harbors, let the calm waters and flickering lanterns guide your thoughts. Feel the steady pulse of the Mediterranean, the quiet movement of ships, and the soft whisper of history. The Phoenicians sail onward, through centuries, through waves, through memory, eternal, gentle, and endlessly connected. Imagine the sun rising over the Mediterranean once more. The harbors of Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos glisten with morning light. Ships are readying for departure, sails folded neatly, cargo secured, and crews moving quietly along the docks. The Phoenicians, masters of the sea, are preparing to connect with lands near and far. Their influence stretches not only across the waves but also into the hearts of civilizations that shaped the ancient world. To the south, the land of Egypt beckons. Pharaohs have long desired the cedar of Lebanon, and Phoenician ships carry it faithfully, beam by beam, across calm waters. In exchange, the Egyptians provide gold, fine linen, and exotic materials. Picture the bustling ports of Egypt, merchants examining jars of cedar resin, scribes recording every transaction, laborers unloading carefully crafted cargo. Through these exchanges, the Phoenicians gain wealth and knowledge, learning techniques of craftsmanship, religious rituals, and agricultural methods from one of the most ancient civilizations. To the east lies Mesopotamia, the land of the two rivers. Phoenician merchants travel upriver and along the coast, delivering goods, negotiating with rulers, and absorbing the wisdom of Sumer, Akkad, and later Babylon. They witness the intricacies of irrigation, the grandeur of ziggurats, and the meticulous cuneiform records that preserve law, commerce, and myth. Each interaction enriches the Phoenicians, offering lessons in administration, writing, and diplomacy. The sea is their guide, but the knowledge of the land deepens their understanding of the world. Across the Aegean, the islands of Greece shimmer in the distance. Here, the Phoenicians trade their famous purple dye, glass, and luxury goods for olive oil, pottery, and precious metals. Greek artisans adopt Phoenician techniques, and in return, the Phoenicians absorb artistic motifs, mythologies, and maritime innovations. Imagine a quiet evening on a Greek harbor, the scent of the sea mixing with the aroma of baking bread. Phoenician merchants speak softly with local traders, sharing knowledge, learning new ways of construction, and observing the rhythms of Greek life. Each encounter strengthens their network, expanding cultural and economic influence. These contacts are not only commercial but deeply cultural. The Phoenicians are keen observers, adapting what is useful while maintaining their own traditions. They adopt new materials, techniques, and ideas, incorporating them into their ships, art, and trade practices. In return, they leave traces of their own culture, the alphabet that will influence Greek letters, artistic motifs, religious concepts, and maritime expertise. The flow of goods is continuous, like the gentle rocking of a ship at anchor. Cedar beams travel to Egypt, ivory and spices from Africa and Arabia arrive in Phoenician ports. Fine metals from Europe and the Aegean circulate through markets. Every transaction is a quiet thread weaving civilizations together, a rhythm that moves slowly but inevitably, shaping the Mediterranean world. Consider the festivals and ceremonies that accompany these exchanges. In Tyre or Sidon, offerings are made before departure. Priests chant softly, invoking Melkart or Astarte, asking for protection and guidance. Sailors adjust sails and check ropes, aware that each journey carries not only cargo but the reputation and influence of their cities. Across the sea, similar rituals unfold in foreign lands, mirroring the care and reverence with which trade is conducted. Phoenician merchants also act as mediators between civilizations. When disputes arise or when resources are scarce, their networks provide solutions. They offer safe passage, knowledge of currents and ports, and practical assistance. By serving as connectors, they reduce conflict, promote understanding, and ensure the flow of goods and ideas continues uninterrupted. Their influence is subtle yet profound, felt not through conquest but through trust, skill, and reliability. Imagine a voyage at twilight. A Phoenician ship sails quietly under a sky brushed with shades of rose and gold. The North Star guides the helmsman, while oarsmen move in rhythmic harmony. In the distance, lights twinkle on the coast of Crete, or the harbor of a Mesopotamian port. Merchants discuss upcoming exchanges, noting the flow of silver, the arrival of rare materials, and the timing of festivals. Knowledge and goods move as seamlessly as the gentle waves, creating a living network of connection. Through these interactions, the Phoenicians gain more than material wealth. They acquire understanding of law, governance, craftsmanship, art, and religion. They bring back innovations in shipbuilding, pottery, glasswork, and weaving. They learn the myths and philosophies of other peoples, absorbing lessons that will influence their own culture. In every port, every conversation, and every trade, their civilization grows stronger and more interconnected with the broader world. Even at night, when the ships are anchored and the markets have quieted, the influence of these connections persists. Scholars and scribes record transactions, artisans plan new designs inspired by foreign motifs, and priests offer thanks for safe journeys. The rhythm of life, though calm, reflects the unending motion of the Mediterranean itself, a web of commerce, culture, and learning that stretches across lands and centuries. As you imagine the Phoenicians sailing quietly across the sea, let your mind follow their journeys. Feel the gentle rocking of the ships, the whisper of the wind in the sails, the soft lapping of waves against the hull. Picture the distant lights of ports, the quiet movements of traders, and the shared respect between civilizations. The Phoenicians connect worlds, not with armies or walls, but with skill, knowledge, and presence. Their legacy is subtle, enduring, and profoundly calming. So rest now, and allow the rhythm of the Mediterranean to carry you. Let the echo of trade, conversation, and culture soothe your thoughts. Picture the ships gliding softly under starlight, the lanterns reflecting in the gentle waves, and the silent, enduring connections that the Phoenicians fostered across ancient civilizations. They continue their voyage through or many other civilizations ventured boldly into invention. The Phoenicians quietly perfected skills that would echo through history. Along the coasts of Byblos, Sidon, and Tyre, workshops hummed softly with creativity and craftsmanship. The air smelled of cedar, molten glass, and the faint metallic tang of bronze tools. Every day, artisans, sailors, and scribes contributed to a web of innovation that intertwined with trade, culture, and daily life. Among their most remarkable achievements was shipbuilding. Phoenician ships were elegant, sturdy, and designed for speed as well as endurance. Artisans selected cedar timber with care, knowing that each log needed to withstand storms and long voyages. Hulls were carved with precision, carefully shaped to cut through waves without resistance. Sails were crafted from woven fibers, strong and flexible, catching the wind in perfect harmony. The placement of oars, the design of the prow, and the balance of cargo were all refined over generations. These ships were not merely vessels. They were tools of exploration, commerce, and connection, carrying people and ideas across seas that many feared. Equally impressive was their mastery of glassmaking. In Sidon's workshops, furnaces glowed warmly as molten glass was shaped into beads, jars, and ornaments. Skilled hands worked delicately, blowing and molding materials with patience and precision. The colors were vibrant, reflecting the sun and sea, blues like the Mediterranean, greens like coastal groves, and reds reminiscent of the fiery sunset. These objects traveled across the Mediterranean, admired for their beauty and craftsmanship. The skill of glassmaking was both a practical trade and an art, combining science, creativity, and patience in equal measure. Perhaps the most renowned of Phoenician innovations was the creation of Tyrian purple dye, extracted from thousands of tiny murex sea snails. The process was slow and laborious, yet it produced a deep, vibrant purple that could color garments, banners, and ceremonial robes. This purple became a symbol of royalty and divinity. Kings and emperors across lands coveted it, and its rarity made it extraordinarily valuable. Even the simplest cloth, once touched by this dye, carried a sense of prestige, wealth, and connection to the mastery of the Phoenician artisans. Another quiet revolution came in the form of the alphabet. The Phoenicians developed a writing system that was simple, adaptable, and efficient, reducing complex scripts into a series of symbols representing sounds. This innovation allowed ideas, transactions, and stories to be recorded clearly and transmitted across great distances. Their alphabet would later inspire Greek letters, and through them, the writing systems of Europe. With this tool, the Phoenicians not only traded goods but also shared knowledge, history, and culture, leaving a lasting imprint on civilizations far beyond their coastal cities. Every innovation was deeply intertwined with daily life. Ships required precise construction to sail safely. Glass objects reflected cultural tastes and facilitated trade. Purple dye connected artisans to faraway markets, and the alphabet enabled commerce, diplomacy, and learning. None of these achievements existed in isolation. Each was part of a larger ecosystem of skill, observation, and cultural refinement. Visualize a quiet evening in Tyre, where sailors inspect newly built ships, ensuring every plank is secure. Nearby, a glassblower shapes molten material into delicate ornaments, the glow of the furnace casting soft light on the surrounding walls. On a table, scribes copy letters carefully onto papyrus, recording trade agreements, laws, or simple messages to distant colonies. The city hums gently, alive with productivity, yet calm, each person aware of the rhythm of life and work. The process of innovation was both meticulous and meditative. Artisans measured, tested, and refined, learning from each experiment. Mistakes were quietly corrected, lessons absorbed, and techniques passed down to the next generation. This patient approach allowed Phoenician crafts and knowledge to endure, spreading slowly but steadily across the Mediterranean. Their influence was not immediate or violent, but subtle, persistent, and deeply integrated into daily life. Imagine now a Phoenician merchant ship departing for a distant colony. The hull, crafted from fragrant cedar, moves smoothly through the water. On board, glass vessels are carefully stored, bundles of dyed cloth secured, and scrolls containing records of trade and instructions neatly rolled. The sailors navigate by the stars, their knowledge of wind and current guiding them. Each innovation, the ship, the cargo, the records, ensures the voyage succeeds, connecting civilizations across hundreds of miles of open sea. Even in moments of quiet, the innovations of the Phoenicians ripple outward. Glass beads may decorate a Greek temple, a violet robe may drape the shoulders of an Egyptian noble, the alphabet may help a trader in Spain record a shipment from Carthage. Through practical application, commerce, and art, these advances touch countless lives, often in ways that go unnoticed yet endure across generations. The brilliance of the Phoenicians lay not in monumental constructions or empires of stone, but in the subtle power of human ingenuity. Shipbuilders, glassmakers, dyers, and scribes worked with patience and skill, shaping objects, ideas, and methods that would outlast the cities themselves. Their legacy is quiet yet profound, a testament to the enduring power of thoughtful innovation. As you let these images drift through your mind, feel the gentle sway of a ship at sea, the warmth of a glass furnace, the deep hue of Tyrian purple, and the careful strokes of a scribe's pen. Each represents a harmony of skill, observation, and purpose, a reflection of a people who shaped their world with care. Allow this rhythm, calm and deliberate, to guide your thoughts toward rest. The Phoenician innovations continue to resonate through history, gentle and eternal, like the steady pulse of the Mediterranean itself. The horizon stretches endlessly as a gentle wind brushes against the sails of a Phoenician ship. There are no hurried movements, only the quiet rhythm of oars and the soft creak of timber. The crew moves with practiced ease, every gesture precise, every motion a reflection of centuries of experience. This is the heart of Phoenician mastery, their ability to navigate the vast Mediterranean with skill, courage, and careful observation. They were not mere travelers, but explorers, mapping coastlines, recording safe harbors, and charting currents that would guide countless journeys. Imagine a sailor tracing the contour of an unfamiliar shore, noting the shapes of cliffs, the position of reefs, the depth of the water. These observations, quietly documented, formed a living atlas, a guide for those who would follow, for merchants, settlers, and fellow navigators. The Phoenicians relied on the stars as companions and guides. Orion, the Pleiades, and the steadfast North Star became reliable markers in the night sky. Sailors learned to observe their position by the constellations, sensing latitude without instruments, understanding wind patterns, and predicting storms. Navigation was as much art as science, a delicate blend of observation, experience, and intuition. Imagine a voyage along the western Mediterranean. The ship glides past islands whose names will later echo in history: Sardinia, Corsica, Sicily. Each harbor is noted, each landing studied. Phoenician merchants leave small settlements, some of which grow into bustling colonies, others serving simply as temporary anchorages. Every journey contributes to the understanding of the seas, gradually revealing a network of safe passages, resources, and trading opportunities. Beyond the familiar waters, the Phoenicians venture further. The western coast of North Africa unfolds before them, a land of deserts, rivers, and fertile valleys. They map the shoreline carefully, marking points where ships can replenish supplies, where trading with local communities is possible, and where the currents might pose a danger. These explorations are deliberate, measured, and profoundly patient. Each discovery is a quiet victory, a step toward understanding the vast, interconnected world. Across the Mediterranean, they connect cultures. The Phoenicians carry goods from one shore to another: Tyrian purple for the rulers of distant lands, fine glassware for Greek temples, cedar for Egyptian construction. Alongside the cargo, ideas travel, writing systems, artistic motifs, and religious practices. Every journey strengthens their influence, linking cities and communities through commerce, culture, and knowledge. Envision a calm night at sea. The water is smooth, reflecting the stars above. Sailors rest while a small watch remains awake, scanning the horizon, noting the position of stars, feeling the subtle changes in wind and tide. They record these observations meticulously, ensuring that future voyages will be safer, more efficient, and more predictable. Through this practice, the Phoenicians gradually understand not only the geography of the Mediterranean, but also the patterns of nature itself. Phoenician exploration also extends to trade winds and currents. They learn the timing of seasonal breezes, the behavior of storms, and the characteristics of coastal waters. These insights allow their ships to travel with greater speed and safety, to reach distant markets, and to establish colonies in locations carefully chosen for strategic and economic advantage. Each journey deepens knowledge, creating a quiet, invisible web of expertise spanning the Mediterranean. Consider their westernmost reaches. Phoenician sailors venture along the Iberian Peninsula, bringing tin, silver, and other resources from the Atlantic coast. Islands in the western Mediterranean become familiar resting points. Even the distant shores of North Africa, sparsely populated and mysterious to outsiders, are slowly mapped and documented. With patience and care, they create a mental and practical atlas, a guide for generations to come. In every voyage, observation is continuous. Changes in weather, subtle shifts in currents, the flight of birds signaling land, and the movement of clouds are all studied and remembered. This meticulous attention to detail ensures that each journey builds upon the last. Knowledge accumulates silently, passed down from one generation of sailors to the next, forming the foundation for Phoenician maritime expertise. The Phoenicians were also adept at adapting to local conditions. In unfamiliar waters, they would follow coastlines, establish temporary camps, and interact with local populations. They learned local tides, winds, and navigation cues, blending their own skills with the wisdom of those they encountered. Every encounter, every observation, and every journey contributed to a broader understanding of the Mediterranean world. Imagine returning to a familiar harbor after months at sea. Ships glide into the calm waters, sails lowered, cargo safely stowed. The crew disembarks quietly, exchanging stories, recording notes, and replenishing supplies. They have traveled hundreds of miles, mapped coasts, learned currents, and carried goods and ideas across vast distances. These journeys, though often solitary and understated, are profound achievements, shaping the course of history with patience, skill, and vision. Even as empires rise and fall, the maps and knowledge of the Phoenicians endure. Their careful observations guide merchants, settlers, and sailors for generations. The routes they discovered become arteries of trade and communication, their methods of navigation a legacy that outlasts individual lifetimes. Through quiet skill and careful observation, they transform the Mediterranean into a connected, navigable world. As you let these images unfold in your mind, imagine the gentle rocking of a Phoenician ship, the soft sound of waves against the hull, the stars above reflecting on calm waters. Feel the rhythm of oars, the movement of sails, and the quiet accumulation of knowledge with every passing mile. Let this serene flow of discovery and understanding carry your thoughts into rest, as the Phoenicians continue their eternal voyage across the waters of history. The Phoenicians stretches far beyond the coasts of their homeland, echoing quietly through the history of the Mediterranean and into the civilizations of Greece and Rome. Imagine standing on a quiet hillside overlooking a bustling Greek harbor, where ships from distant lands glide into calm waters. Among them are vessels bearing the unmistakable mark of Phoenician craftsmanship, sleek cedar hulls, carefully designed for both speed and endurance, carrying goods, ideas, and knowledge. The Greeks, though proud of their own emerging culture, cannot help but absorb the lessons offered by these experienced seafarers. Phoenician trade had introduced the Greeks to materials, techniques, and innovations that shaped the development of their society. The Greek alphabet, a cornerstone of Western literacy, owes much to the simple, adaptable script first developed by the Phoenicians. By reducing complex scripts into a series of symbols representing sounds, the Phoenicians provided a tool that allowed for clearer communication, record-keeping, and the transmission of ideas. Greek scribes and scholars, inspired by this system, adapted it, creating a foundation for literature, philosophy, and science that endures to this day. Imagine a Greek school in the soft morning light. Young students, seated under olive trees, trace the shapes of letters inspired by Phoenician symbols onto wax tablets. Their hands move slowly, methodically, learning both the form and the sound of each letter. Through these quiet exercises, they absorb the legacy of a people who understood that written communication could transcend distance and time. The Phoenician alphabet becomes a bridge, connecting cultures through language, enabling trade agreements, legal codes, poetry, and philosophical discourse. Beyond writing, the Phoenicians brought artistic and technical knowledge to Greece. Glassmaking techniques, introduced by Phoenician artisans, find their way into Aegean workshops. The Greeks begin to craft delicate vessels and ornaments, experimenting with color, form, and function. Similarly, the famed Tyrian purple dye, rare and coveted, becomes a symbol of wealth and status in Greek society, influencing clothing, decorative arts, and ceremonial attire. Even the design of ships, from hull construction to sail placement, is inspired by the careful methods of Phoenician shipbuilders, enhancing Greek naval capacity. The Romans, too, felt the subtle yet profound influence of the Phoenicians. Long before Rome became a vast empire, Phoenician colonies and trade networks had established a web of cultural and commercial connections across the Mediterranean. Roman merchants and sailors learned from Phoenician navigational techniques, observing how their ships managed currents, winds, and coastal hazards. Roman artisans adapted Phoenician methods in metalworking, glass, and textiles, integrating these skills into the growing technological and cultural foundation of the Republic. Phoenician religion and mythology also leave traces in Greek and Roman belief systems. Deities such as Melkart find echoes in the stories of Hercules, while aspects of Astarte influence the conception of goddesses associated with fertility and the sea. Temples built by Phoenician colonists, with their intricate carvings, symbolic motifs, and ritual practices, inspire architectural and artistic choices in new cities. These subtle connections weave through culture, often unacknowledged yet profoundly shaping the spiritual and aesthetic sensibilities of emerging civilizations. Imagine a quiet Roman forum at dawn. The soft light illuminates statues and inscriptions. Merchants prepare for the day. Traders examine imported goods from across the Mediterranean. Among these imports are items that trace back to Phoenician artisans: dyed fabrics, glass ornaments, cedar timbers, and small objects inscribed with the unmistakable shapes of the Phoenician alphabet. Each object carries a story, a lesson, and a subtle influence, reinforcing the interconnectedness of cultures through centuries of trade and observation. Trade itself becomes a vehicle for influence. Phoenician merchants were meticulous, careful observers of markets, resources, and cultural preferences. They introduced new foods, materials, and products that gradually shaped local economies. Olive oil, wine, luxury textiles, metals, and jewelry flowed through Greek and Roman ports, creating tastes and expectations that local producers adapted to meet. Even mundane commodities bore the mark of Phoenician skill, whether through improved packaging, labeling, or craftsmanship, subtly elevating the standards of trade in the Mediterranean. Military and maritime techniques were also influenced. Greek naval strategy, particularly in the early periods of city-state conflicts, absorbed lessons from Phoenician ship design and seamanship. The construction of triremes, the organization of crews, and the understanding of currents and wind patterns reflect knowledge refined over generations by Phoenician sailors. Roman fleets, too, benefited indirectly, as naval knowledge spread through colonies, trade hubs, and written records. The Mediterranean, though turbulent at times, becomes a more navigable and interconnected space due to the quiet legacy of Phoenician expertise. Art and craftsmanship remain enduring markers of influence. Pottery, jewelry, and decorative motifs demonstrate a fusion of Phoenician and local styles, creating aesthetics that are at once functional and symbolic. Temples, statues, and household objects carry traces of Phoenician design. Intricate geometric patterns, stylized animals, and symbolic iconography. Artisans work quietly, sometimes unaware of the distant origins of their methods, yet perpetuating a legacy that has traveled across seas, generations, and civilizations. Education, record-keeping, and administration also benefit from Phoenician influence. The use of a simplified alphabet allows for the development of codified laws, economic accounts, and scholarly records. Libraries and archives in Greek city-states and Roman towns can preserve knowledge more effectively, enabling the growth of philosophy, mathematics, and history. Every written scroll, every ledger, and every treaty carries within it a subtle echo of Phoenician innovation, connecting the practical and intellectual endeavors of different cultures. Even the spiritual and ceremonial life of Greek and Roman societies reflects these quiet legacies. Rituals, festivals, and religious symbols often show parallels to Phoenician traditions, whether in the honoring of sea deities, agricultural cycles, or seasonal celebrations. While adapted to local beliefs and integrated into emerging mythologies, these influences create continuity, a silent thread weaving Phoenician wisdom into the broader tapestry of Mediterranean life. Visualize a calm evening in a Greek city. The marketplace is quieting, lanterns flicker softly, and the gentle sound of the sea reaches the distant docks. A merchant counts coins while nearby, a scribe finishes copying letters onto a tablet. Across the streets, artisans finish crafting glass beads and ornaments, the colors catching the soft light. Even in this serene moment, the subtle, pervasive influence of Phoenician knowledge, artistry, and commerce resonates, shaping life in ways both tangible and intangible. Through centuries of trade, exploration, and innovation, the Phoenicians leave behind a legacy that is not always overt but is deeply enduring. Mediterranean. The quiet influence of the Phoenicians shaped civilizations in ways both subtle and enduring. Long after their cities had flourished along the Levantine coast, the marks of Phoenician culture, trade, and innovation persisted, threading through the development of Greek and Roman societies. These were not influences imposed by conquest or force, but gently absorbed through commerce, art, religion, and technology, leaving a legacy that would echo across centuries. Greek city-states, rising along the Aegean Sea, encountered Phoenician merchants and artisans early in their own history. The alphabet, perhaps the most enduring gift, transformed Greek communication. By reducing complex symbols to a set of phonetic signs, the Phoenicians provided a system that allowed ideas, laws, poetry, and commerce to be recorded with clarity and flexibility. Greek scholars adopted and adapted this system, creating the foundation for literacy, literature, and scholarship. Imagine a classroom in Athens or Corinth, children tracing letters on wax tablets, copying stories, learning not only the symbols but the discipline of thought and expression that the Phoenician script enabled. Each movement of the stylus connects generations, carrying forward knowledge shaped by distant shores. Artistic traditions traveled similarly. Glassmaking, an intricate craft honed in Sidon and Tyre, inspired Greek artisans to experiment with form, color, and technique. Jewels, beads, and delicate vessels moved along trade routes, influencing tastes, ceremonial attire, and domestic decoration. Tyrian purple, extracted laboriously from thousands of murex snails, became a symbol of wealth, authority, and status in Greek culture. Clothing dyed in this rare color signaled not only material affluence but also the reach of a global trade network, a connection between peoples separated by sea yet united by commerce and craft. Naval technology and seamanship were also deeply influenced by the Phoenicians. Greek shipbuilders observed the design of Phoenician hulls, the careful distribution of cargo, and the placement of sails and oars. These lessons allowed Greek fleets to grow in both sophistication and efficiency. Through observation and adaptation, naval knowledge expanded, enhancing trade, exploration, and later military capabilities. Roman fleets, arriving on the scene centuries later, benefited indirectly from these same innovations, absorbing techniques passed along through Greek intermediaries. The rhythm of oars, the tension of sails, and the careful balance of ships at sea all trace back to Phoenician ingenuity, a quiet legacy of technical mastery. Trade itself became a channel for influence, shaping economic systems and daily life. The Phoenicians introduced new goods, fine textiles, dyes, metals, cedar wood, glassware, and other luxuries. Markets in Greek and Roman cities thrived on these imports, prompting artisans and merchants to adapt, innovate, and create new methods of production. The careful packaging, labeling, and presentation of goods reflected a sophisticated understanding of consumer expectations. Even ordinary commodities bore the imprint of Phoenician skill, elevating standards across regions and inspiring local adaptation. Religious and cultural exchange was subtler but equally significant. Phoenician deities found echoes in Greek and Roman mythology. Melkart, protector of sailors and merchants, resonates with aspects of Hercules. Astarte, goddess of fertility and love, informs the conception of Greek and Roman goddesses. Rituals, festivals, and sacred symbols reflect this quiet transmission, as settlers, traders, and artisans carry beliefs and practices across the Mediterranean. Temples constructed in Phoenician colonies inspired architectural and artistic choices elsewhere, blending functional design with symbolic meaning. Consider a Roman city at dawn. Merchants inspect imported goods, dyed cloths, glass vessels, cedar beams, and written scrolls bearing instructions and agreements. Artisans prepare workshops, while scribes organize tablets for record-keeping. Though the Phoenicians themselves may no longer dominate the seas directly, their influence permeates daily life. Every item, every method, every ritual carries a fragment of a civilization that valued skill, observation, and connection over conquest. The practical applications of Phoenician innovation extend to governance, law, and administration. Writing systems adapted from Phoenician scripts allow for codified laws, economic records, and diplomatic correspondence. Greek city-states develop bureaucracies capable of managing complex trade networks, while Roman administrators maintain precise records of taxes, shipments, and civic duties. The tools introduced by Phoenicians facilitate the management of societies growing in size and complexity, shaping the infrastructure of civilization itself. Maritime exploration and colonization also leave enduring marks. Greek colonies in Asia Minor, Sicily, and southern Italy learn from Phoenician navigation, settlement planning, and harbor construction. The careful study of tides, currents, and wind patterns informs the selection of settlement sites. These colonies become nodes in a network of trade and cultural exchange, reinforcing the continuity of influence that spans hundreds of miles. Phoenician knowledge of distant lands, safe harbors, and seasonal variations continues to guide fleets, merchants, and settlers long after their own coastal cities have declined. Even in art, design, and daily rituals, traces of Phoenician legacy endure. Geometric motifs, stylized animals, and symbolic iconography appear in Greek pottery, frescoes, and jewelry. Roman domestic decoration and religious paraphernalia reflect subtle adaptation of these patterns. Craftsmen, often unaware of the original source, perpetuate techniques and aesthetics shaped by Phoenician hands centuries earlier. Every carved symbol, every piece of glassware, and every dyed cloth forms a quiet thread linking civilizations across time. Beyond material culture, Phoenician influence fosters intercultural understanding and connection. Merchants, navigators, and settlers act as conduits for knowledge and ideas, promoting diplomacy, shared technologies, and mutual respect between diverse peoples. This network of influence creates a Mediterranean world in which commerce, communication, and cultural exchange flow smoothly, laying a foundation for the intellectual and economic achievements of Greece and Rome. Visualize a Greek festival, with ships arriving from distant lands. The air carries the scent of cedar, incense, and spices. Artisans display their wares, merchants negotiate with quiet patience, and citizens observe new fashions and exotic goods. Among them, letters written in Phoenician-inspired scripts are carefully read aloud, recording agreements or celebrating events. Music, dance, and ceremonial offerings fill the streets, blending local traditions with the subtle influence of cultures carried by seafaring traders. Every detail, from clothing to inscriptions to gestures, reflects a web of interaction that spans the Mediterranean. As you allow these images to settle, imagine the gentle waves of the Mediterranean carrying ships, goods, and ideas from Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos to distant ports. Picture scribes copying letters under olive trees, artisans shaping glass and weaving fabric, and sailors navigating by stars learned from centuries of observation. Along the eastern Mediterranean coast, the once thriving cities of Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos gradually enter a new chapter, a period marked by challenges, conquest, and transformation. The harbors that once resonated with the clatter of trade and the scent of cedar now face the quiet tension of looming empires. The Phoenicians, masters of navigation, trade, and craftsmanship, confront changes that ripple through their society and across the Mediterranean world. Their decline is not sudden, but a slow evolution influenced by political pressures, shifting trade routes, and foreign domination, as the tides of history alter the landscape they once controlled. The Assyrian Empire is among the first to exert a powerful influence. Imagine the calm streets of Tyre on a soft morning, where merchants continue their routines, yet an underlying awareness of the distant drums of Assyrian armies pervades the air. Tribute is demanded, alliances renegotiated, and the independence that once defined the city-state begins to waver. Despite political subordination, Phoenician merchants and artisans continue their work with care and diligence. Temples still host silent prayers, workshops hum quietly, and children learn the alphabet, preserving knowledge and culture amid the uncertainty of foreign oversight. In the centuries that follow, the Babylonians and later the Persians extend their reach. Their presence reshapes trade, administration, and governance. Ports must comply with imperial rules, taxes, and regulations, yet the Phoenicians adapt, demonstrating resilience and pragmatism. Ships continue to traverse the Mediterranean, carrying goods, ideas, and expertise, even under external control. The rhythm of daily life maintains a quiet dignity, reflecting a civilization adept at balancing tradition with adaptation. Merchants negotiate shipments, sailors observe currents, and scribes record every transaction, ensuring continuity of knowledge and commerce despite political constraints. Tyre, long celebrated for its maritime strength, faces a particularly dramatic transformation under Alexander the Great. The city, encircled and besieged, resists with ingenuity and courage. Picture the walls bristling with defenders, the ships maneuvering in the harbor with practiced skill, and the determination of a population facing a historic challenge. Months of siege test the city's resilience, yet the relentless pressure of conquest prevails. Tyre falls, signaling a profound turning point in Phoenician history. Even in defeat, however, the cultural, commercial, and technological influence of Tyre persists, carried forward by colonies, trade networks, and the enduring legacy of Phoenician knowledge. Sidon and Byblos encounter similar challenges, gradually losing political autonomy but retaining their cultural vibrancy. Harbors still welcome ships, workshops continue crafting glass, textiles, and carved wood, and markets operate with careful negotiation. Even under foreign domination, Phoenician artisans and merchants preserve traditions, ensuring that the skills, innovations, and wisdom developed over centuries continue to flourish. Their expertise in navigation, trade, and craft maintains relevance, quietly influencing neighboring regions and civilizations. The expansion of Greek power further reshapes Phoenician territories. Colonies in Sicily, southern Italy, and North Africa operate within a shifting geopolitical framework, adapting to new centers of authority. Yet the cultural legacy of the Phoenicians continues to spread. Greek cities absorb shipbuilding techniques, artistic motifs, and religious practices from Phoenician settlements. Phoenician knowledge of the seas, trade routes, and coastal resources informs Greek maritime strategy and economic development. Even as Phoenician city-states face decline, their influence grows indirectly through these cultural and technological exchanges. Roman expansion introduces a new phase of transition. By the time Roman authority reaches the eastern Mediterranean, the Phoenician cities are integrated into an imperial system that centralizes control and redefines local governance. Yet the practical and cultural contributions of the Phoenicians endure. Roman engineers utilize Phoenician construction techniques for ports and harbors, artisans refine metalworking and glass techniques, and merchants continue to rely on centuries of maritime expertise. The subtle, pervasive influence of Phoenician civilization persists, shaping the development of Mediterranean commerce, technology, and culture long after the cities themselves have been absorbed into larger empires. Life in these declining cities continues with quiet rhythm. Ships glide in and out of harbors, artisans craft goods in dimly lit workshops, and scribes record transactions and correspondence. Temples maintain rituals, offering solace and continuity in times of uncertainty. Daily life, though overshadowed by foreign power, reflects resilience and adaptation. The cultural memory, skills, and traditions of Phoenicia remain embedded in the people, the architecture, and the rhythms of commerce, subtly influencing the wider Mediterranean world. The rise of Phoenician colonies, particularly Carthage, illustrates the enduring nature of Phoenician influence. These colonies inherit trade networks, maritime knowledge, religious practices, and artistic techniques from their mother cities. Carthage, in particular, emerges as a powerful hub, extending Phoenician reach westward while preserving the cultural and technical achievements of the homeland. The decline of coastal cities, therefore, is not an end but a transformation, as knowledge, skill, and culture flow through new centers of influence. Even as political authority shifts, the Phoenicians leave an indelible mark on history. Their alphabet continues to inform writing systems across the Mediterranean. Maritime expertise shapes navigation and trade. Artisans' techniques influence Greek and Roman crafts, and religious symbols subtly permeate new belief systems. These quiet legacies endure across generations, proving that cultural and technological contributions can persist even when political power wanes. Imagine twilight over a Phoenician city now under foreign control. Lanterns flicker along narrow streets, the sound of waves echoes in the calm harbor, and the faint hum of workshops carries through the air. Cedar, resin, and salt mingle in the breeze, reminding the observer of a thriving past. Though political autonomy has diminished, the knowledge, artistry, and spirit of Phoenicia continue, quietly shaping life in the city and beyond. The decline of Phoenician cities is thus a story of transformation rather than erasure. Political structures fall or adapt, but the essence of their civilization, innovation, trade, craftsmanship, and cultural exchange, survives. Every conquered city, every absorbed port, and every distant colony carries forward the enduring influence of the Phoenicians. Their legacy, subtle yet profound, continues to ripple across the Mediterranean, touching Greek, Roman, and subsequent civilizations, preserving the quiet genius of a people defined by skill, patience, and connection. As you let these thoughts settle, picture the calm waters of the Mediterranean, the gentle glow of lanterns in distant harbors, and the slow movement of ships navigating familiar routes. Hear the quiet hum of workshops, the soft voice of scribes recording trade, and the subtle echo of centuries of knowledge. Sets gently over the eastern Mediterranean, one can reflect on the remarkable journey of the Phoenicians, a civilization defined not by conquest, but by innovation, trade, and quiet mastery of the seas. Their cities, Tyre, Sidon, and Byblos, once pulsed with activity, filled with merchants, artisans, and sailors. Though political power has shifted, their influence continues to ripple through time, leaving traces in the art, language, technology, and culture of civilizations that followed. The Phoenicians were unparalleled navigators, charting the Mediterranean with skill that allowed distant lands to be connected in ways previously unimaginable. Imagine a calm evening at sea, sails catching the breeze, oars slicing through water with rhythmic precision, while stars above guide the path. Each voyage brought new knowledge, coastlines carefully mapped, currents understood, and trade routes refined. These journeys were not merely about commerce, but about understanding the world, observing its rhythms, and sharing that wisdom quietly with others. Trade, commerce, and exchange formed the backbone of Phoenician influence. Their ships carried precious goods, cedar, glass, textiles, metals, and Tyrian purple, across the Mediterranean. These items, crafted with precision and care, were not only valuable commodities but also vehicles of cultural transmission. Through trade, ideas, technology, and artistic styles traveled alongside goods. The Phoenicians, in their quiet mastery, connected peoples, fostering interactions that would shape societies for generations. Among their most profound legacies is the alphabet, a simple, adaptable system that translated sounds into symbols. It revolutionized communication. Greek and later Roman civilizations adapted this innovation, enabling the recording of literature, law, trade, and philosophy. Picture a young scribe in Athens tracing the shapes of letters inspired by Phoenician symbols, unknowingly participating in a chain of knowledge that stretches across centuries. Every inscription, ledger, and poem carries within it the echo of Phoenician ingenuity. Their craftsmanship, too, left a lasting mark. Glassmaking, jewelry, textiles, and shipbuilding were perfected over generations, reflecting a careful blend of artistry and practicality. Tyrian purple dye, laboriously produced, became a symbol of status and wealth, its deep hue admired across cultures. Even as political power waned, these skills persisted, influencing Greek artisans, Roman architects, and Mediterranean trade networks. Each delicate glass bead, each carefully carved timber, and each vibrant piece of dyed fabric bears testimony to a culture that valued meticulous work and subtle sophistication. Phoenician religious and cultural traditions quietly integrated into other civilizations. Deities and myths inspired Greek and Roman gods, and ritual practices informed local customs. Temples, artistic motifs, and ceremonial objects created by Phoenicians influenced architecture and aesthetics far beyond their original cities. Even colonies like Carthage absorbed and adapted these practices, extending Phoenician cultural reach westward. Through this slow transmission, a civilization that no longer dominates politically continues to shape thought, belief, and art across the Mediterranean. The decline of Phoenician cities did not signal the end of their legacy. Conquered by Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, and Romans, the cities adapted, yet their influence remained undiminished. Colonies inherited trade networks, technology, and cultural practices, ensuring that Phoenician knowledge continued to circulate. Even as empires rose and fell, the careful observations, innovations, and connections established by the Phoenicians persisted, forming the undercurrent of Mediterranean civilization. Consider the quiet persistence of Phoenician influence. Greek fleets adopting ship designs perfected by Phoenician artisans, Roman engineers incorporating port construction techniques, artists in distant lands emulating patterns first crafted in Sidon, and scribes everywhere using alphabets inspired by Phoenician letters. This enduring presence, subtle yet profound, demonstrates how a civilization can shape the world without the need for conquest, relying instead on knowledge, skill, and connection. The Phoenicians were more than merchants or sailors. They were intermediaries of culture, knowledge, and technology. Their calm mastery of the seas allowed them to observe, learn, and share. Their meticulous craftsmanship ensured that objects carried meaning, utility, and beauty. Their innovations in writing, navigation, and trade provided tools that shaped the development of civilizations far removed from their coastal cities. In every case, the influence of Phoenicia is quiet, indirect, yet deeply persistent, a testament to the power of skill, patience, and insight. Even in decline, their presence is felt. Harbors may have fallen under foreign control, cities may have been conquered, and political power may have shifted, yet the rhythms of Phoenician life, trade, craft, communication, and exploration endure. These are the subtle currents that connect generations, the invisible threads linking distant societies, and the quiet wisdom that continues to shape human progress. Their legacy is a reminder that influence can persist in forms that are intangible yet powerful, shaping history in ways that often go unnoticed but are deeply felt. Visualize the Mediterranean today, calm and shimmering under the setting sun. Imagine the gentle movement of ships, carrying goods, ideas, and culture from one shore to another. Hear the soft rhythm of waves against the hulls, the quiet clatter of workshops, and the distant echoes of scribes recording letters and accounts. In these moments, the enduring presence of the Phoenicians is palpable, a quiet force connecting past and present, shaping civilizations with skill, patience, and insight. As your mind drifts through these reflections, feel the gentle continuity of history, the calm persistence of culture, and the subtle endurance of human ingenuity. The Phoenicians, though their cities may have declined, live on in the alphabet, the vessels, the textiles, the glass, and the knowledge that shapes the Mediterranean and the wider world. Let this quiet awareness guide you into rest, allowing the rhythm of their legacy, calm, continuous, and eternal, to carry you gently into sleep.